We're rolling and we're live. This is a special paramilitary episode of Oktane Minutes Podcast addressing a recent current event. This episode it's not going to be on a time delay. We are in Christmas. I thought about it in Christmas Eve, pre-Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. I'm recording it, so by the time I'm done, we're probably technically in Boxing Day. Shout out to my brothers in Europe, Canada, UK, and all the islands and stuff like that. But Boxing Day, paramilitary episode, addressing elephants in the room. When we're talking about the elephant, we're talking about that origin of hip hop, the thing that's been, it's kind of like, this is like the new evidence. It's kind of like a new rewriting of history that, people had like a speculation on. I'm going to make a light beggar. But people had this speculation on the new whereabouts of where hip hop came from. When all in all, I'm going to keep it a buck. I'm going to keep it a real buck, Fat Joe. Because obviously Fat Joe is a liar, just doing stuff to keep himself relevant because he's never had good albums. But hip hop is it's originally a black art form, and I can prove these things today. But when I say that its originators in its very first inception of what hip hop is, and even where some of its origins come from Black America. Firstly, if you get the documentary, and this is years, at least 30 years before, 25 years before the whole controversy of hip-hop's origin, because not to say that I'm not trying to take away from the Puerto Rican Hispanic influence, because like if black people were number one, the Puerto Rican, Panamanian, Dominican brothers, they were probably like one. If there was like a number absolute one, it's FBAs, Black American kids. 1A, boom, Puerto Rican, Dominican kids that were there. Okay, like let's just keep this also funky. Okay, as far as hip hop is concerned, hip hop has always been even in its exception. Remember, this was a culture that was built by the youth. This was a youth culture. It kind of created itself, coincided with punk rock. There was times where kids outside the culture, and this is also when I'm speaking with white kids, a lot of white kids that were slowly taking notice in New York City was calling hip hop black punk rock records. Right? Which is interesting. Shout out to the late great Ed Piskor. He had a graphic novel. It kind of, I guess he's dropped Treasury editions and omnibus edition books, but it's called Hip Hop Family Tree. You could definitely buy it from, was it Lighthouse Press? Anyway, I don't know. I'll post a lot of my sources. I will post my sources if you ask me. I will send you a bunch of sources. But he had a book called Black Family Tree, and he talked about how the white kids in New York, or at least New Yorkers as a whole, like if black kids were the first originators of hip hop, right? Puerto Rican kids were probably 1A, 1B. Then just New York City as a whole was 1.A1, you know what I mean? Like it was a very close inception about hip hop's growth. Because I'm going to further expound upon this. I'm going to do a little bit of research, but I do have a vast knowledge of hip hop, obviously, because I'm in the culture. I've been rapping since I was 13. I'm 43 now, but there were a lot of pre-influences that came strictly from Black American kids, right? And I'm not putting this on my Caribbean brothers. Caribbean brothers did not invent hip hop. Yeah, there were some very close similarities in some things, but just for the simple fact, one, is that we don't call MC and toasting. We don't call battles or concerts sound clashes. We call it hip hop. We don't call hip hop American or New York dance hall. That's just off rip. Like, we don't do a lot of things that, we don't do a lot of things that Jamaicans did. And if anything, let's go back, because I was talking with my brother A-Preem, and I'm pretty sure, he wasn't, I guess I should have called him, but I can always do a second part 2 to this and have his take. So I figured I'll just go ahead and just do my run, and then we'll have the conversation, and he'll go on and explain, because there's some other things that he knows about hip-hop that go beyond the scope of hip-hop that will connect to what I'm saying. But yeah, obviously, there were Puerto Rican kids that were at the proto. Like, let's just say, if the bomb went off, they were there looking at the crater at ground zero. Okay. But yeah, then the white kids saw it and they were calling it punk rock. But remember, you got to think in New York City, right? Especially like in Manhattan, the Lower East Side, I guess. Even I would say that, like, I'm an old cat, and I'm not even from New York, right? I'm not of that origin. I didn't invent anything, but I also had a deep love for it to remember its history. So this is the thing that's important for you young guys that are in rap now, that especially Southern rappers, we got to know our history, even if we do have a bias for our city and we do have these issues. Because I remember these kids used to have this obsession, this hate for New York. Listen, the stuff that we do on the mic comes from New York. We may have stylized it differently, but it's New York stuff. Okay? It is what it is. But back to my train of thought. So there are many evidential cultural markers for its origin, as to the outside first origin, a lot of things came from, the 5%ers. And of course, my brother A-Preem will, when he's on here, we will talk about that, and he will add on to that. You know what I'm saying? He will give you a more extensive thing. There's a lot of words, a lot of things. As a matter of fact, sometimes you probably would have been probably better had you come under the study to truly get hip hop, especially when hip hop was moving itself out of the late 70s into the 80s and into the early 90s throughout the 80s. You really probably would have been better off or survived better had you been one of the gods. Another classical marker. Okay, this is where I was getting at. So when you look at, like, because I was watching a documentary, and I was telling my brother about this, but I was watching a little clip from a documentary, and they were talking about Afrobeat singers from the 1970s, and we're talking about guys from Ghana, Botswana, all over the continent, right, all over from the motherland. They were talking about when they were doing that funk music, they were taking their traditions, they were taking their rhythms, and then they were applying them to the things that they saw Americans do. Same with Jamaicans. I know that there are the similarities in dancehall, but a lot of reggae artists didn't just invent reggae. They were doing soul music. They took their folk music, they took their traditions that were on the island, and they saw what James Brown was doing. Matter of fact, another originator people don't know is the rapper Blowfly. Blowfly was an originator to a lot of soul music, but they were looking at a lot of soul music. They were looking at a lot of old gospel music. The call and response stuff that the old preachers were doing. Especially like when a lot of the Jamaican brothers were going back and forth from the island to New York. with their, they moved there maybe with their mother or their fathers, and then they would go back to visit their relatives, and they would, and they don't just come back empty-handed. They were coming back with little Stevie Wonder and Motown records and jazz records and all that. Same with salsa, same thing. Brothers from the island who were classically trained, they go to New York City, they saw the soul singers. So a lot of brothers, I mean, even the guys who were outside of hip hop, right? I'm talking about 50s, 60s, up to the mid 70s, to where hip hop's, I guess, collective concoction began to become what would be now called hip hop, right? In its first proto stage of officially being hip hop. These brothers were already looking at soul singers. Guys like Ray Charles and, of course, that's one of the other indicators that everybody that was around moving and immigrated to America, they copied us. Like not my grandparents. I did have aunts and uncles who were soul singers. I did have an uncle who were professional soul singers and stuff like that up in the Connecticut area and stuff. But prior to that, disco and everything, everybody liked disco. Disco was super popular. And a lot of the soul singers were making that move towards that. George Clinton was a soul singer. And these guys from all over the world. England, the young white youths in England who basically, without having to see the African American struggle or deal with the civil rights struggle, they felt what we were going through, and they adapted what they felt and put it to their way of life. They say, okay, this is how we were feeling, and this is how we created with what we were influenced by. Look at Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton was influenced by Muddy Waters, all those blues brothers that were traveling from Mississippi in them back roads to Chicago to get away from Jim Crow laws, I mean, mind you, I'm not saying that hip hop is an exclusionary thing. I'm just saying that its ground zero was us. We were the all in all origin. Okay? Black Americans. Otherwise it would be something else. It is what it is. I think Fat Joe did a huge disservice, and I don't even understand that. Like, when someone kind of does something historical and it becomes it's historical fact, when it becomes something, especially if it's like a positively innocent thing of history, people get so offended about them not being the first of what, I would even address Necro about that, because I saw a thing where Necro was feeling like he wasn't getting enough love, and then he made it about, I don't know, I didn't get it. Like, he made it about white people not getting love in hip hop, and he's like, well, you're under the microscope. I said, you know how many black guys are under the microscope when they jump back to metal? Then they were playing heavy metal, they get, it's a thing it's a unusual culture thing. You see a black punk rock guy nowadays, in New York City, it probably wasn't a thing because the black kids were going to CBGB sometimes. Jean-Michel Basquiat, while I consider him not a hip hop artist, he was more of a punk rock kid, and he was in a punk rock band called Grey's Anatomy, based off of the book and the, not so much the TV show, but the novel Grey's Anatomy. He did that. He was a punk rock kid, and he was under the microscope. He had a different thing. But they crossed paths with him and Fab Five Freddy, who was like one of the guys who were there in the beginning. Yeah, of course they crossed paths. Everything cross-pollinates. New York is probably, as far as like anything of pop culture, New York would probably be the best place to germinate, to grow something, It is the media capital of the world. That, and or LA is the, where the stars are born, but where the information is created first. It's New York City. But yeah, everybody was influenced outside of hip hop that contributed to hip hop. But yeah, going back to Necro, yeah, I just didn't understand like his frustration for everything. I was like, you know, Necro, you're clearly a legend in this underground hip hop space. You clearly did a lot, and I'm saying like I don't know if you feel that your contributions go unnoticed, because they do go unnoticed. Because at one point, I'll say for myself, there was no bigger fan of Necro than me. I have all his records, just about, you know. So I can't say that, you know, I'm not going to say that Necro was whatever wrong in the way he feels, but I think that the things that he expressed, I think he was a little off. Because he had talked about, he goes, well, these white guys contributed this. I said, well, they're not direct contributors to hip hop. They had things that were useful to hip hop. I would even say that there were things that were appropriated. I would say it was things that were appropriated into hip hop. I'll go as far as that. Hip hop appropriated a lot of things. They sample. But for him, you know, but Bob James, for him to say that Bob James contributed a lot to hip hop, as like, I think he kind of said it. I felt like he kind of said it like Bob James, or he was acting like Bob James specifically made his records to give to hip hop. No. Bob James was contributing to jazz. He was a great jazz musician. But Bob James, unlike a lot of artists, and I wouldn't even say like a lot of artists, unlike a lot of the publishing houses that took control of a lot of these brothers' work, Bob James, I think he had control of his publishing and mastering. He saw the value of what hip hop did for his pockets. And then I think that he also enjoyed being a true artist, seeing how people are influenced by you and how they take your work they take your actual body of work as the medium to create. That is a revolutionary concept, that they take your whole bodies of work, break it into pieces, reconstruct it. It's like taking the building material of your. It's like they build a perfect copy of your skyscraper, demolish that skyscraper with the same building materials, and rebuild a whole other different building with it. That's an interesting concept when you think about sampling. That you take something from its root origin, or something that was from another origin, take it, reconfigure it, fit it into another space, and then do it multiple different configurations. Because, you know, one sample is just not one sample. I mean, by this time in hip hop, by the end of 2024 into 25, that's crazy, 2025, that we are seeing that, I mean, we're even beyond sampling at this point. We're in the AI era. We're in an era to where an algorithm can learn how you make music and assist you. It literally will take the essence of your thoughts, break them down, and reconfigure them as to how you are more likely to create. You know, technology is a part of hip hop. But yeah, what I'm saying is, Mr. Bronstein, I feel that he was slightly off, but I understand why he felt that way. But I think it was more or less that, I don't know, I think he may have felt that he didn't get enough love in this hip hop space. But, you know, you know, people are not gonna like you, man. I mean, I understand that you dealt with a lot of things, but I believe that you would have to just go outside of your comfort zone and reach out to other types of artists. I mean, I think Scott Storch is Jewish, and he gets mad love. So I just think it's more of the fact that people don't understand the niche market of horrorcore, as far as that goes. And then Fat Joe, obviously, going back to him, because I know I jumped around a lot. Fat Joe, I felt the type of way, because like I said, sometimes people don't like to see positive black brothers doing nothing, you know, especially if we're doing positive things for us to uplift us. And it's not that we're excluding anybody from hip hop. What it is that, you know, everybody in the world has a place in hip hop. Hip hop is a youth movement. Honestly, it's a movement for youth. Black youth were there first. We were the one that put it together, because we were already also, this is the other classical marker for that. We were at the time prior to the 70s, 50s and 60s, we were already used to coming together and organizing and creating positive things. So, you know, while our aunts and uncles at the time were marching and going to these meetings, still dealing with civil rights and organizing themselves to give ourselves a better future. And then, you know, you have a lot of the black schools, and I know a lot of old brothers say this too, and we're going on 20 minutes. I might just be waxing poetically out of this one, man, because this is on the Oktane Minutes Podcast official. But, you know, you have a lot of brothers that were, you know, that were in the music program, and they defunded a lot of the black schools. And kids still had, you know, just because you defund something and you take the instruments out, you don't stop the art from being made just because you take the tools away. We just find a way to create the art. Simple and plain. You know, kids in the Bronx, you know, the Puerto Rican kids dealt with that too. I'm sure of it. But they also had salsa music. They had salsa music, and then the older kids, the older young adults, they were going to disco, and I can prove that because my father, who was going back and forth from the Carolinas to Connecticut, New York, New Haven, in the Bronx, because he had family in the Bronx that moved once they became adults. He would even say, like, he was there, but my dad was a little older when he was making those trips back and forth to New York City, and he was doing high school up there, or in Connecticut, and visiting New York with his other cousins, that he saw hip hop. But my dad was like already in his, you know, he was not from New York. He was from the Carolinas. He was already in his early 20s, late teens, early 20s. And my dad just kind of looked at it like, okay, it's a young guy. You know what I'm saying? He looked at it as, okay, yeah, it's like a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds dancing, having fun in the park. That's cool. I got, you know, my dad's like, I got to go to work at Subway. I got to go deliver ice cream and pizzas. You know, he was working his way through college in between. And then I remember years ago, my mom was even saying, like, here's another one, you know, I mean, you know, my parents were just anecdotal. They're not the factual, because, you know, they're just old black people. My mom was even saying, like, yeah, I remember seeing boys do the up rock dance in Florida. I seen them up rocking and pop locking. I've seen them do that like as early as like the 60s, doing these dances, especially up rocking, you know. And I said, well, there may be facts to that, because Blowfly is from Miami. You know, there's a lot of soul singers that come out of Miami, or come out of Florida, come out of the deep South. And there were a lot of dances that were here and there. And a lot of our relatives, a lot of our distant relatives that moved to New York came from the deep South. So a lot of these things came from the Southern origins, you know. But, yeah, I mean, everybody had their thing. So it's not like Jamaicans invented hip-hop. They did. They had dancehall. They invented reggae. And we love reggae. But reggae was influenced by the soul music. soul music was influenced by the gospel music and the Negro spirituals that were going on. I mean, you know, and the folk music and the square dancing. You know, even the origins of country music come from black men, come from the cattlemen that were in between trying to do business during Reconstruction. Even jazz was the origin of jazz, I think it was like a concoction of bluegrass and gospel, but they were more free. It's like it was a free form music. I mean, I probably sound like I'm rambling on, but I wanted to get this out and explain things. But yeah, anybody else who want to jump on and talk about this, I'm not gonna say I'm debating nothing, because like I said, I'm firm in my belief, and I'm firm that this is a black youth art form. That's where the origin is. It's just that after a while, it was, you know, just like how reggae is still around, just like how salsa is still around, hip hop is still around, right? I mean, plus, you know what I'm saying, you know, when we're talking about salsa, you know, like I just saw a thing, you know, the young Puerto Rican kids used to get harassed by older Puerto Ricans. Used to get beat up sometimes about hanging around with black kids doing hip hop. So, like I said, there'll be other people who will join in on this, and there'll be some people that can add on and all of that. And like I said, it's not going to be no debate and nothing like that. We will just have discussions, and I will hear you out. You know, that's just what it is. But all in all, you know, raw video form. Before I go, because I've gone way too long. White Tiger Wars available on CDs. Just what I have in stock, and it will go soon, pretty fast soon. But yeah, White Tiger Wars is available. Hit my Bandcamp up, Oktane and Diabolical Hideaway, or Bandcamp /Oktane and Diabolical Hideaway, and I have all my stuff there that I've released so far. And I'm trying to get back into the NFT crypto space, so if you want to buy some songs that are in the vault or haven't been released or probably won't be released in the United States, you'll probably want to start hitting me up on Rareable, because I will have a whole gang of in the vault stuff that will be NFT and mintable, just because I seen my crypto wallet had a lot of coins in it, and I'm not telling you how much, because then you'll try to steal my crypto wallet. But yeah, I want to shout out to the Saba Sun family. And I know I've babbled on long enough, but I needed to get the poison out and talk about it. So almost 30 minutes. I've waxed poetically long enough for you guys, and I love you all. So peace to everybody, and I love y'all. Raw video form will come out, and the other thing, this is the paramilitary episode, so it's coming out immediately. It'll be a Boxing Day episode, so of the current time, and then the other stuff in the future. But yeah, salute skis. Shout out to my brother Uncle Dust. All right, you take care.
Yo, this the Brown album. Yo, this the Brown album. Got machetes and I'm sitting at the ready. Sharp machetes and I'm sitting at the ready. Yo, I'm sitting at the ready, yo. Saba Sun, Oktane, Saba Sun, yo. Yo.
The guy came back with machetes at the ready. The light turned red as danger zone. First man stepped up, cut him to the bone. Did the second the same way, the torch was home. Hit him on the cervical spine, then cuffed his mind. Just like many others, anxious on the pine, warmed the bench for the execution. A little bit of water, mixed blood type solution. When it was raw, it was real. The feeling that you inducing, I got it by the key, I'm selling it, who's in? Different forms of zen, and one mind is kin on fire. Shout out to my twins. Stylistic, endless, everything's reality, all day bugging. War dance for the casualty, that's the hard shit. You know, coming after me, it's nothing but tragedy. Brown, brown, and bangers go bananas when I black out. Never back down, I'm here for another round. Focus on the raw and rugged sound. Yeah, yeah. Brown, brown, and bangers go bananas when I black out. Never back down, I'm here for another round. Now, focus on the raw sound. Focus on the raw sound. Brown, brown, and bangers go bananas when I black out. Never back down, I'm here for another round now. Focus on the raw underground sound. Cyber sun, the house of torture, build a village. The men there inspired to raid and pillage. Tribe shit, have a laugh at the ritual, kill it. Before we go on a mission, expedition, I willingly move ground and oceans, elements of nature, time and space, I the creator. Impact so fast, I'll leave a crater, courtesy of the maker. Touch the universe, infinite, intimate, close quarters. If we talking, I'm walking, disaster, Oktane, old number 7, heat on your brain, you feel miserable, probably trapped in hell, thoughts and health, tied to the gut feeling, but without fail, you dealing with a beast. Only breath of fire cooking up the beef. Fast release here for the feast. Stay in my teeth. Oktane, I be the elite. What?
Here at the steady, machetes at the ready. Here at the steady, machetes at the ready. Sitting steady, machetes at the ready. Yeah, machetes at the ready, yeah.
Brown, brown, and bangers go bananas when I back out. Never back down, I'm here for another round now. Focus on the raw underground sound. Brown, brown, and bangers go bananas when I black out. Never back down, I'm here for another round now. Focus on the raw, rugged underground sound. Cyber sun. Brown, brown, and bangers go bananas when I black out. Never back down, I'm here for another round now. Focus on the raw, dirty underground sound. Oktane, motherfucker.